Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Mike Force Podcast. I'm back. Mike G's back. A lot of stuff to cover. A lot of things to talk about. I know it's been a few weeks, and that's intentional. The last time that I did content, major content on YouTube, it was on the Uvalde shooting, where the public release of the video was presented. And I took that and met up with John Park, my head of media for Fieldcraft Survival, and we went through every second of that video together, and he recorded me and my reaction in real time. So you can call it a Mike Reacts video, but a lot of the emotions and anger and frustration I was feeling was raw. There was no edits or cuts of that video, I believe. If it did get cut, it was because I was cussing and very upset. But I also wanted to be a little professional, to offer my criticism in line with the truth, the protocol. A lot of the things that you witnessed in that video were not misperceived. It's tactically and technically how it went down. There were a lot of officers on that scene, according to news reports, over 276 officers, some estimates as high as 300, where a lot of those officers involved didn't understand what was taking place because it was never communicated by Uvalde. I'm under the old school way of thinking that leaders are responsible ultimately for the success or failure of these things that take place. And in fact, I think the success is to the men, the failure is to the leaders, especially when you have such egregious mistakes being made on target, on the objective at this school, including leaving the radio behind or turning it off because they didn't want to be compromised in the hallway, and all the excuses that you hear. Here's the bottom line. These guys messed up really bad. And it cost kids and these teachers their lives, because they were alive after they entered the classroom. The door wasn't locked. A Uvalde police officer, supposedly, according to the reports, not according to Mike Glover, according to the reports, was able to stop this, but they didn't. And you just can list and list and list until you just beat it to death. And I beat this horse to death, but it's frustrating, especially for the families, knowing that there's no justice for their children being killed. There's no justice for their loved one dying because of no response. I've put out free opportunities for training all over the country. I had a few agencies reach out, done a few phone calls, a couple consultations, but overall, not a lot. And that's typically how it works out. I mean, I've expressed my frustration when offering free training for law enforcement, and you get all these guys who sign up, waste the slot, and never show up. And it's consuming. Like, I run a business, and my business is teaching citizens, military, and law enforcement how to be best prepared. But when I offer things for free and nobody shows up, yeah, it gets frustrating. I don't want to focus this podcast on that. I want to focus on other things that are going on with me and Fieldcraft. But I want to let you know that I appreciate your support. That video, which we weren't sure how it was going to be received, was received very well, according to the comments and the overall reach and engagement, messages, and everything else that I got. I started the Patreon, my personal patreon.com/Mike Glover, because I wanted to communicate, especially to Tier 1 members, very specifically answering their questions and communicate with them, because I just don't have the bandwidth to communicate to everybody that comes into the network of Fieldcraft Survival. And I got a lot of feedback from them, and overall, overwhelmingly, it's been positive. Yeah, sure, there's those officers. I talked about this on the Cleared Hot podcast with Andy Stumpf, which is this week's episode, about some of the officers being frustrated and saying, I don't know what I'm talking about. The reality is I do know what I'm talking about. I mean, you don't know what you're talking about if you're saying I don't know what I'm talking about, but you could have your opinion and I'll have mine. I train law enforcement for a living. So yeah, have your opinion and say I'm wrong. The reality is, you know I'm right. I'll just put it that way. some of the things that kind of were extracted from this conversation were, hey, we have to be our own first response, which is what I've been saying since the beginning origins of my company in 2015. The big gap that I saw in civilian training, which is why I started Fieldcraft Survival, was there was no institution training civilians because people thought civilians didn't need to be trained. I started this path not with tactical training, but actually with first aid training. Because in my job as a CIA contractor, I had to be TCCC certified. I was an instructor. I was a very young EMT in the infantry. And so I had to know these basic life-saving skills like stop the bleed, how to apply a tourniquet, how to assess and carry a casualty. All the basic things, because we're in remote locations of the world and the response might never come. Like a first responder might never come to your location because you're in the middle of Africa. What I've realized socially in evolving and developing different training protocols for civilians, this is the case in the United States of America. We saw that for the first time when BLM and Antifa were conducting peaceful protests that turned into riots where they were murdering people. Yes, there are dozens of cases, including African Americans, who were murdered by rogue, call them BLM, call them Antifa, call them who you want, that stemmed from the base riot that started with a protest from BLM and Antifa. And the first reports of this were in Chaz, where they just blocked off an area and said, you know what, we're not going to enforce any laws here. Well, how did that work out for you? And then you have known criminals handing out weapons out of the trunk of a vehicle to people in Chaz, and cops are told this is too political. We don't want to get involved in a turf war. Give them the city. Give them their section. What? They had people checking IDs. How well did that experiment in socialism and communism, in a dictatorship, and terrorism work out for them? And then we're asking the questions now politically, like, well, that wasn't a thing. It certainly was a thing. But if you turn on CNN, if you turn on C-SPAN, if you turn on the YouTube, it's all about January 6th because that was an insurrection. No, it wasn't. That was a protest where a whole bunch of idiots went into the Capitol. They stormed the Capitol building and went into it. Yeah, there were law enforcement officers who died, but none who died that day directly related to protesters killing them. There were a couple officers who died of heart-related issues, including a stroke and a heart attack. And there was one protester who was shot and killed by a Capitol police officer. That was openly demonstrated and showed on all the major media channels. And that dude was a hero. Like, are we living in bizarro world? Yes, we are. Welcome to it. The clown show is real. This is what we're living in. So when they burn down your city, when they have protests because guys from Antifa are showing up in full battle dress uniforms, including kit and shields, ballistic head protection, in some cases weapons, that's normalized by the media. That's normalized by leftist extremists who are saying, yeah, this is normal. This is what we should be doing. What? With all that being said, the reality of today's circumstance in this new society we live in, which I can give you the reasons why I think this is happening, is we need to get our shit together. I'm not plugging Fieldcraft here. We're a source. I just mean you personally need to get your shit together. You need to stop spending 4 hours on social media a day getting brainwashed by the propaganda machine that's feeding you in an echo chamber all the things that are inciting emotional rage. We need to get back to the grassroots of what we were doing a decade ago or in the 80s when I grew up. family units, love, relationships, rapport building, working. If you go on media nowadays, social media especially, it's a cesspool. So follow and be attentive to the people who are putting out educational information and positive feedback loops. We're driving ourselves insane, literally. One of the biggest issues that I've seen that is derived from social media is mental health issues. Now, a lot of the things that we do, we go, well, how do we know there's mental health issues? It's hard to discern who's crazy, who's not. Well, the actions of these crazy people is a good indication how to identify metrics of where we're headed into the future, including drug abuse, suicide, gun violence, people violence, crime statistics, violent actors and offenders statistics, homelessness. I mean, if you look in every major metropolitan statistic, everything bad is up and everything good is down. Now, what can you blame? Well, you can't blame politics, just policy exclusively. Part of this is a cultural and societal issue that we cannot get a grasp on. So it is going to be a fight. But here's the first line of effort on the front lines of this fight. Take care of yourself, take care of your family, and you should be taking care of your community, because if you're taking care of yourself and your family, then it only should benefit the community. That's what we should be doing. Family prep tips. One of the first things that I want you to focus on in your family preparation is focusing on situational awareness, because we're losing it. When you pay attention to your phone, you lose up the heads-up display that you have naturally in a primal universe because you're staring at your phone. Writing chapters of this for my book, Prepared, for Penguin Random House, I'm starting to extract a lot of this information, especially the science behind it, and I'm like, man, this is real basic stuff. If you're staring at your phone, attracted to the dopamine hits you're getting from scrolling and clicking and interacting with this virtual world, then most certainly you're not paying attention to your actual world. And there's detrimental fallout from that because you're not paying attention to your environment. So deliberately, we need to take the time to put the phone down and interact with our real world. It's why I've made the promise to you, and most importantly, myself and my family, that I'll no longer be on my smartphone because I won't own one. January 1st of 2023. All the access to me, the content we're doing, will be long form. Sure, I'll do a post or a video that my media guys will film and they'll upload it to my accounts. That's fine. We'll do that. But I'm done interacting with people in short form. We have to demand long-form conversations, long-form content, long-form education. We have to demand it by changing the way we do business. Because the way you do business is only supporting the business, the Facebook, the Instagram, not supporting you. It's one of the reasons I'm a fan of Patreon and a fan of YouTube, because you could do long-form content. I'll continue to do that. I'll continue to record it and upload it and do these podcasts, but I will be damned if I will be tethered to a cell phone that's taking all my attention away from my kids. I have to fight with myself, and I don't have an addictive personality, but I can't imagine people who do, where they get that dopamine hit and their routine and their habit is picking up that phone and they can't stay off of it. I won't do that to my children. I won't do that to my family. I won't do that to myself. Am I asking you to get off the content machine? No. I'm asking you to be smart about it, but I'll set the example, and then I'll give you feedback on how it affects my life and how it's benefited me, because I know it will benefit me. Because instead of picking up the phone, I'll pick up a book. Instead of picking up the phone, I'll pick up my kids. Instead of picking up the phone, I will pick myself up and do something positive in the world. And that's what we need to do collectively in order to be best prepared. One of the things I want to talk about is my my EDC loadout for my family. Yeah, you have to adapt, and it shifts and changes. A lot of people ask me this question, like, Mike, you have guns, but how do you treat those guns around children, especially my kids? One of the things I don't do is leave loaded firearms in and around my kids. If I have a gun, say it's my EDC, and I come into the house, I'll unload that gun, and then I'll set that gun, magazine separated from the pistol, in my loadout bag, typically a Patagonia fly fishing bag or a Free American or Fieldcraft fanny pack, high up in the cabinets where my kids can't get access. And if they did get access, they don't have the power to be able to insert a magazine and chamber around. And that's their condition. That's the condition right now these guns are in. Upstairs, I have my home defense pistol co-located with me, and it's inside of a biometric safe box made by Pine World. It might be Pine Land, Pine World or Pine Land. It also has a manual code and a key, but that gun is loaded, ready to go, and can be activated with my fingerprint or a 6-digit code. Be safe with this stuff. You only get to make that mistake once. But another thing that I've done is adapted diaper bags using tactical style bags like Heber stock bags that give it a little bit more function because of the straps. It's made to load bear. If I have to load bear out kit or equipment, I could do that. But it gives me more room and capacity to load it out with things that matter, like survival contingencies, like first aid contingencies. I like Kafaru, Heber stock, Vertex. These bags are key because when you have these bags, they integrate into your lifestyle and world, but they could carry your diapers, can carry your kid snacks, can carry your first aid, your survival, even your EDC. And that's important. So you take what exists, like the diaper bag, which isn't tactical, isn't comparable to holding a loadout, and then you change it up. You adapt that world, taking care of your kids, taking care of infants, into your existing world. And live that dad life, or that mom life, for that matter. Another thing I want you to do is start having the conversation revolving preparedness and doing it now. I just went over to the fire plan with my kids, and where I have fire blankets, where I have escape ladders, and how to reposition everything. Not only is it beneficial to your family, but it actually helps you structurally in your mind figure things out as a free rehearsal to how this gets done. Because now with that refresher of me taking all the equipment and redistributing it through the house, me taking the smoke detectors and doing tests on them, me looking at fire extinguishers and testing them, all give me the fresh rehearsal and the confidence that everything is set up and properly distributed just in case. I don't know if you know this, it's fire season. And we're going through a drought and a heat wave countrywide. I mean, there's a lot of natural disaster that's taking place in our world because of a whole bunch of issues, a myriad of issues. But we should be prepared for these things. Like when I see, unfortunately, 25 plus people die in Kentucky, it breaks my heart. We reached out to American Contingency. If you're a member, thank God. If you're not, AmericanContingency.com, join, because we have Americans and communities in American Contingency, which is designed for you, not me, for you, to be able to reach out to and help each other. Casey, one of my Fieldcraft instructors that works for Sean Kirkwood and Kevin Owens, is out with his wife right now helping Americans dig out of the water. But if you're an American in a flood zone, you need to be prepared. It doesn't cost a lot of money to be prepared. It takes the conversation, the willingness to kind of get off your butt and talk about it, to set in place protocol that's going to benefit you in the worst case scenario. But a lot of us are too consumed with social media and everything else in our life that's not going to lend us that protection. And then when it happens, it's too late. Please pay attention to that stuff, guys. Big news from SIG. One, I don't know if you've seen it, but our SIG Dave Mods Custom. This is a Fieldcraft Dave Mods custom pistol is being wrapped up right now. We did the first round of this 000 through 25 exclusively for the deposit through my Patreon for Tier 1 and Tier 2 members. And then the second round will be released and we'll continue to sell it, likely through a newsletter or even conversations like this. And if you're interested right now, you could actually email us. You guys can go to Dave Mods at gunfuofficial.com. That's DAVEMODZ at gunfuofficial.com, or go to the notes below in the podcast and you can find it. If you don't put in the subject line, it's not going to be read. Put SIG, S-I-G, Elite in the subject line and say you're interested. The pistol right now, which is called the Executive Elite, is a custom fabricated pistol which takes all the greatness that is a SIG 320X and makes slight modifications to make it more ergonomic, more functional, and a better tactical advantage everyday carry pistol. This pistol is only available through that email. It is $2,500 without an optic. The first 25 got an optic for free. That was part of the stipulation for the deal in Patreon, which I advertised. I didn't openly advertise it because I didn't want to get inundated. But it's $2,500. That is a bargain for the pistol, guys. The custom works on that, and the margin for me isn't that great. But we did that so we could provide you an everyday carry pistol that is a pistol set up for your tactical advantage. You want to put a light on it, it's set up for a light. You want to put an optic on it, it's set up for the optic. It's already got the plate. You could add your own optic. That pistol is available for you. You have to do a deposit of $500, and then upon shipping, there's a lead time there, which will notify you based on the lead time. But you guys could email us there if you're interested in it. If you want pictures and everything else, go on my Patreon, or I think it's on my Instagram at mike.a.glover. This all goes through an FFL, guys. This is not a pitch to sell you a pistol in a parking lot here in Heber City, Utah. It all gets processed through your FFL. So check your listings, your laws, your local laws, and your local FFL. The big news from SIG is the SIG P365XL is about to get better. I can't say much because I'm a little early. But I was one of the first guys to test and also do content on a new pistol that is going to change the game. If you're a fan of the 365XL, which is my everyday carry, I rotate between a 320X carry, SIG Elite, which is my custom Dave Mods pistol, as well as the 365XL. It's like, how can the 365XL get better? I'll give you the hint. Has to do with magazine capacity. So if I took a 365XL, which has a 12-round mag capacity, and I wanted to improve it, I would just increase the overall mag capacity to carry more rounds. And then you're competing with Glock 19. You might even be competing with Glock 17, 15-rounder versus a 17-rounder. I don't know. You have to find out. Can't give any more information than that because this is going to drop soon. But could tell you by the middle of August, this will be dropped. And you'll likely see the content coming from us at Fieldcraft Survival or my personal Mike Glover Actual on YouTube. Guys, for training, look, I've been in the tactical space, forever. I used to go to SHOT Show as a tactical industry person with Special Operations Command. Been there a few times. I've seen the ups and downs of the tactical space. I've seen the ebbs and flows. And one thing I'll say is it hasn't evolved a lot. And I think there's a reason for that. Yeah, there's cool companies doing cool products. That's a thing. But the training hasn't really evolved. And a lot of people are looking for that evolution, but not focused on training basic skill sets and mastering those skill sets. I had a kid once who came to a basic gunfighter pistol class, which is basic. It's not that difficult. We teach 4 fundamentals of gunfighting, which we openly communicate. grip, trigger control. We'll call it positioning or alternate positioning, and /stance, as well as alignment, which is our definition of how to get the gun on line with the target versus focused on the optic exclusively, even though that's a thing in the evolution of a gunfight. Shooting and moving, as well as the culmination or the stress shoot. It's a recipe that we've used for years, but I remember I had a kid who went through my training. He goes, "Oh, I thought this was going to be more advanced." And I went, what are you looking for? Well, you know, I get all this stuff. I do this all the time. And I went, interesting. So I have 20 years of experience in teaching, training, from indigenous forces to government agencies across the spectrum, federal firearms instructor. And I've looked at you and assessed you because I do that for a living. And I can tell you right now that you're not ready to advance. If you were ready to advance, the advancement of that would be changing the environment, not the actual technical skill sets. The box that we create, call it the rectangle in front of your field of view, doesn't change. It doesn't change, guys. The mastering of that evolves. The environment is the advancement of technical and tactical proficiency, because that will change. So if you're an operator running down the aisle of a 747 with a pistol, doing a hostage rescue, trying to save the good guy and kill the bad guy, what changes in your box? Nothing. The attention to detail and the mastering of the basics and the fundamentals, the way you shoot, the way you move, your gun handling, your proficiency and technical accuracy, all of that just needs to be dialed and honed. So I told this kid, I'm like, look, man, you think you're ready to advance to environmentals, which is why we do, like in September, the first week, I'm teaching a level 2 here in Spanish Fork, courtesy of Kafaru, who's allowing us to use their beautiful land in Spanish Fork, because we're going to shoot, move, and communicate. We're going to work barricades. We're going to teach vehicle dynamics. But if you're not proficient at just doing the basics, you say you do it, which means you just like check the block and you just do it, but you're not proficient at it. Maybe you should go back to the beginning and go, man, I should treat this seriously and master the basics. Special operators and special operations are not advanced because they do some kind of magic trick. They're advanced because they pay attention to the details. So you need to be detail-oriented. The bottom line is you need to train. Fieldcraftsurvival.com/training. Train with us. Land navigation, survival, first aid and trauma, gunfighter pistol, carbine, level 1, level 2. All of these things are essential in you being the best that you could be. I know there's been a delay with Dallas, Texas. It's frustrating as hell to me because every single person that we've talked to, every business that we talked to, we got turned down by the first people because they didn't want us or those kind of people to interact in their building space. Even though the rent was going to be $18,000 a month, they're willing to lose $18,000 a month because they don't want us kind of people in their area. So we went through that. We went through another lease debacle, trying to figure out how we're going to make a space work for us. If you have anybody that you know that is willing to rent to us, I need like 10 to 15,000 square foot, let us know. Let us know. Because we're desperate for that space. Sean Kirkwood's working with a range called, I think it's Gritter, which is a local range in Dallas, Texas, that's going to give us some space to do some training with. But we're looking for the unilateral vertical here. We want our own space. We want our own real estate to conduct SIMS training. Self-protection is SIM-based. We want to do CQD, close quarter defense for civilians, level 1 and level 2. I want to launch that off in Dallas. And I want to host seminars with 100+ people. I want to get in the backyard of Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, man. It's where we need to be. Just hard to find a place. If you haven't heard the Clear Hot podcast, make sure you pay him attention. One of my favorite buddies, Andy Stump, who's one of my best buddies in the world. Me and him shoot the shit, talking about Uvalde, talking about a whole bunch of different things on the Clear Hot podcast. If you have a group of podcasts that you listen to, here are my recommendations for what I actually listen to on my own. The Cleared Hot podcast, with Andy Stumpf, is number one. The Joe Rogan podcast, I highly recommend that. The Black Rifle Coffee podcast, it's very entertaining, and I love when they have guests like Mike Rowe on it. What is the other one? The Danger Close podcast with Jack Carr. He's a buddy of mine, but that's a great podcast to listen to, especially for experts outside of this kind of tactical realm that we're in. Andrew Huberman, who's a neurologist. I love Andrew's stuff. Don't know the name of his podcast. Just look it up, Andrew Huberman, off the top of my head. As well as the Sean Ryan podcast. He drops longer form podcasts strategically, but every single one of his podcasts are amazing. Make sure you give them a listen. And then hopefully you got Little Belt Cattle Co. is going to come out with a podcast soon. Greg, former Navy SEAL, runs ops at Little Belt. A different demographic of like Montana life, ranchers, farmers, that kind of thing, salt of the earth kind of conversations. He'll be coming out with a podcast. Make sure you follow him on Instagram to listen to his stuff. I'll be at the SIG Freedom Days, October 13th, 14th time frame. If you're going to be out in the area in New Hampshire, Newington, to where the SIG Experience Center is, it's their new SIG Experience Center, which is co-located with the training facility, which is the SIG training center. Go out there and train and come see me. I'll be there during the SIG Freedom Days, which will be an awesome experience. The academy there is phenomenal. A lot of guys with a lot of experience training. Love what those guys do. Former special operations buddy of mine who I've worked with in the past in 10th Group actually runs that center, that academy, that center. The SIG Academy is definitely somewhere you need to set up your training for this year. Guys, I want to talk to you about all the things that are going on in the world with this recession, with kind of the geopolitical issues that we're having. The overall markets, every market is being affected because according to what the definition of a recession is, we are in a recession. So don't be confused. What does that mean? Well, that doesn't mean you need to stop living your life. It just means you got to be resourceful. It means also a lot of people are going to stop spending. As businesses kind of manage this in their perception, in the way you perceive them, looking at their shelves, you're going to see empty shelves. You're going to see longer lead times. I mean, there's long lead times for getting parts for Dodge for my truck. There's long lead times for trying to get a recreational vehicle. There's long lead times for products, plastics, textiles, you name it. And you're going to see even longer lead times on basic necessities like food. I don't want you to take a radical approach here, but I want you to use common sense. If you're not a hunter, why would you not be a hunter? Like if you're a hunter and you go out and you bag an elk, you get a cow or a bull, you get a mule deer, a whitetail, even fowl, then you're subsidizing your protein intake with likely locally sourced available resources. Mike, you shouldn't be promoting hunting because it's gonna affect the whole market. No, it's not. The minority of people in America hunt. Most people who don't hunt are never going to hunt. But they'll go to the supermarket and buy food off the shelf and criticize people who do hunt. I'm not talking about those buttholes. Butthole. I'm talking about like the guys and gals that are on the fence. Oh, this might be too scary. It's not. We just hosted an event with Eastman's Elevated. Like the experts at offering, I say Eastman's Elevated, that's their podcast, but it's Eastman's Hunting Journal, which has been around forever. Guy Eastman and all the team at Eastman's are amazing because I use them as a source for education and their podcast, Eastman's Elevated, which is great, to understand how to get into hunting. I mean, it's not as easy to hunt in the West as it is the East, where you get a over-the-counter tag and it's whitetail baiting. It's tree stand hunting. That's easy. But when you get out into the big mountains of Colorado and Montana and Idaho and Utah, man, if you want to bag a monster elk that's going to feed your family for a year, you got to work for it. And that's okay. The process is the beautiful thing. Builds resilience, mindset, preparation. But then you got 600 pounds of meat. That's the great thing here. Invest in that opportunity, because that opportunity is only going to help you. Like my family right now, we're not eating any outsourced supermarket meat. No factory farmed anything, because screw that. One, I don't want to support them. But two, if there is a lack of food on the shelves, I won't be part of that problem because I'm sourcing my own solution. I have elk tag. I have an elk tag this year with BRCC. I have an elk tag with Andy Stumpf. I have 2 deer tags. I have pronghorn. A lot of it's available to me because I had to go out and get it. But a lot of those things are available in your own backyard. A couple of resources that I use Meat Eater stuff, Ranella stuff. John Dudley is a valuable segment of education in archery hunting. I mean, he does all that stuff for free. I started watching his videos one at a time. And then now I'm going to train with John and get his new bow and get set up for the archery hunt. Eastman's Hunting Journal, definitely recommended. Kafaru, the best packs in the world for backcountry hunting is Kafaru. Pay attention to these guys and gals that are doing this the right way. Start learning, and then along my hunting journey, I will make sure certainly to educate you along the way. You guys see this content we did with the Moto Adventure guys, Kyle Cooper and Kyle 2, we call him K2 from Kalispell, Montana. So I bought the Tenyor, I can never pronounce that, called T700, the Tenyor 700 Yamaha. Man, it is a badass bike. I'm not new to bikes. I had bikes when I was in special operations. I grew up with Harleys and dirt bikes, and I've had 20 bikes. The last bike I had was a KTM 1190, had a Husqvarna 501 that I sold to Jack Carr, had a BMW F800 Adventure, and this 700 is one of the best agile, nimble bikes that I've ever ridden, because it feels truly like a dirt bike, but it's capable of highway speeds. And that's struggling with a big-ass dude like me on the back of a bike like that. I'm not on the back of it. I'm on it. But the reason we're doing this content is positioning it around this idea of bugging out. And that's what I want to talk to you before I let you go. What is bugging out? Bugging out is a real thing, guys. It's not just a fantasy of this apocalypse now scenario. Because the only thing I really mean when I say bugging out is displacing from a bad situation into a good. Wildfires. We learned this in the campfire. We learned this in Northern California during the Paradise fires. Some tragic fires that took many lives, and how people couldn't get out. They couldn't bug out because they were locked down in gridlock traffic. We've experienced this. We make the same mistakes every single year in different parts of the country based on the season, where you see gridlock traffic and everybody abandoning their vehicles or just leaving it to the fate of the time that it takes first responders to get there or not, and just holding down in our cars with no plan to bug out. So the bug out series we're doing is revolving around the idea of the area that you're in falling apart. This could be a natural or man-made catastrophe. The first episode we're going to do is on civil unrest. What happens when riots kick off in your backyard? It happened here in Provo, Utah, out of all places. Provo is beautiful. It's nice. But some dude was shot because he literally ran into a blockaded position where protesters weren't letting him get through. He got scared. He went to take off. Wasn't going to hurt anybody except get away. And some dude shot him. Got charged with attempted murder. I think he got convicted of attempted murder. Shot him in the chest with a .380. An old man. Here's something you should know. Based on all my assessments and everything I know and all my forecasting capabilities, based on my experience in planning operations, assessing information, the election cycle, 1 year out from election, which is next year, about 18 months, you're going to see radical fallout. And then if a conservative Republican gets in, which likely is to happen, what do you think is going to happen? All the anti-fascists, all the socialists, all the BLM Marxists are going to come out of the woodwork because getting elected as a Republican now is racist. Man, it's going to be a bad social time for America because we're damned if we do, damned if we don't, because people are looking for excuses. So what are you going to do? Well, I'm not going to be at a protest. When American Contingency, during the January 6th stuff, I did a video to AmCon communicating to American Contingency members what to do. And you know what I said? While Proud Boys were activating and people were looking for guidance from me, Mike, what do we do? You're the leader of AmCon, which I am. Alpha Charlie 1. We're not doing anything. My guidance to AmCon members was stay on the outskirts of everything, report in real time all relevant information to give people information to protect themselves and their families and their communities. And that's what they did. So while these dumbasses were going into the Capitol building, our guys were on the outskirts reporting real information in real time. Yeah, the FBI talked to me. They wanted to know what Mike Glover and American Contingency were doing. What we are doing, we're taking care of our homes. Where I'm going to be is in my house with my family, locked down. Because if something happens on my city street, in my community, I'm going to handle business. If protesters come on my lawn and try to breach my front door, very different set of circumstances here in Heber City, Utah. I want you guys to be prepared, and if you don't understand bugging out, you're not prepared. That series launches soon. It's going to be fun because we're looking at bikes, we're looking at bicycles, electric bikes, we're looking at vehicles, waterborne, maritime stuff. It's going to be rad. Even bugging out via the air. It's all relevant. Maybe it's the high, extreme version of it that's just meant to inspire you. But thinking about what you could actually do, like, I don't know, have a dual sport in your garage? You're welcome, guys. I just gave you justification to the wife to buy a dual sport. Have it rigged out. When you build out and rig out a dual sport for your family, for recreation, you're by benefit doing that for bugging out. Because when everybody else is gridlocked in their car and you throw your spouse with a baby strapped to the back and you guys bug out and you cut traffic, you cut obstacles, you get off-road and on-road or whatever road you need to create, then you're better set up for success. And you won't be the statistic. You'll read about it on the news at a later time. One thing for a bug out is route rehearsal. Make sure you plan all of this in advance. Talk to the spouse. Run a rehearsal together. Make it fun. Hey, honey, we're going to practice this bug out. You're going to get on the back of the bike. You're going to grab the go bag, attach it to the bike if we have time, and we're going to roll. We're going to practice multiple routes that include on and off road and have alternate and contingencies. Pace is the key. Primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency is the key. Because the pace plan will save your ass because we're planning to fail. Always plan to fail. Because if you don't plan to fail, you plan to succeed. As soon as you go out the gate, something's going to happen. It's going to change your plan, and then you're not adaptable. You didn't do the rehearsal. You didn't tether service and support, and you didn't get it done. I'm stoked about the bug out series. I want to give you teasers, but I'm going to wait. I'm going to hold off on it. Guys, that's all I got. I want to tell you guys, I want to remain optimistic about all the things that are going on in the world. There's a lot going on. But what I'll tell you realistically, from a person who's kind of analyzed this stuff his entire life, we are not headed in the right direction. We're actually headed in the complete wrong direction. But you should also understand that the fabric of this country is not a politician. It's not a political party. It's not a group or an organization. It's you. It's me. the one thing I love about preparedness, which is my selfish means to get access into every major heavy populated center and affect change, is when you start building relationships around this idea of preparedness, it's such a positive thing. You don't have to wait for me. You don't have to wait for American Contingency to set up your group or for you to join a group. You could do it yourself. This is all up to you. But please do something. I love you. My community loves you. But set yourself up for success by being prepared and paying attention. And get off your damn cell phones. Get off your cell phones. Watch the positive things. Get the education. Use it for what it can be used for as a valuable tool. And stop dead scrolling. It just makes you dumb. Takes you away from what's important. And just makes you dumb. Till next time. Peace out, guys.